This might look like just a sculpture, but this object is actually one of several relief models, born out of countless hours of observing our closest neighbor, the moon. My name is Abbie McKinnon, and I'm the Curator of Space Technology at the Science Museum, and welcome to this episode of Here's the Thing. Today we're looking at James Nasmyth's lunar surface relief model. This is a plaster relief model of the lunar surface made by James Nasmyth. James was born in Edinburgh in 1808, and throughout his career he was a prolific engineer. But his most famous invention was the steam hammer, which was a response to the growing industrial manufacturing during the 19th century. He also had an artistic background, having been trained by his father, the landscape artist Alexander Nasmyth. The steam hammer allowed James to retire, actually, in his 40s, and devote the rest of his life to his obsession with the moon. He made nightly observations of the lunar surface using a 20-inch reflecting telescope that he actually made himself. His sketches were done using chalk and pastel, and he formed and reworked them over many nights. He then took these drawings and created a plaster relief model like the one in front of us here. And he used mathematical calculations to work out the shadows from his drawings and thus the depth of the craters and the height of mountains and how low the valleys were. He then photographed them, creating these very realistic snippets of features of the lunar surface, all of which he'd observed through his own reflecting telescope. Here you can see several craters and the Apennine mountain range. In the Science Museum's new space gallery, you can see a piece of the moon collected during Apollo 15, which landed in the Apennine area in 1971. Photography in the mid-1800s, used as a scientific tool, was actually a very new concept. The fact that Nasmyth trained as both an artist and an engineer and used this medium to bring to life the lunar surface, not just in a kind of fantastical, imaginative way, but in a scientific way, was quite novel for this time. This plaster relief model Nasmyth made out of plaster of Paris, which was a material at the time that was quite commonplace amongst artists. There's a whole fleet of statues which made copies made out of plaster of Paris. And so this medium lent itself quite well for Nasmyth's purposes. It's quite easy to manipulate and easy to form the minute detail of the lunar surface, which Nasmyth was so keen to replicate in his photography. James Nasmyth used a series of these plaster relief models to photograph and include in a book that he published in 1874 with British astronomer James Carpenter. The book was called The Moon, Considered a Planet, a World, and a Satellite. This book included these incredible photographic imagery of the lunar surface, which all stemmed from James Nasmyth's nightly observations of the lunar surface that he had drawn. He was able to achieve such incredible detail with these photographs by lighting them using the sun and ensuring that the shadows of the craters were identical to the sketches that he had made during his observations. In Nasmyth and Carpenter's book, they put forward the theory that the craters and mountains and valleys that they could observe on the lunar surface was created through volcanism, or volcanoes erupting and creating these valleys and mountains and craters. They also theorized that the inner core of the moon was actually shrinking, and then that was also creating this kind of topography. Nasmyth actually took an image of his hand and also a shriveled apple with lighting on it to show how old things shrink and form these lines and valleys and mountains. This was, of course, not true, and in fact, the craters were caused by impact from meteorites over many billions of years. The last two chapters of Nasmyth and Carpenter's book is devoted to imagining what it would be like to stand on the moon and look back at Earth. This was really something completely new at the time and ended up really anticipating the genre of science fiction and these imagined worlds. Nasmyth observed and recorded in unprecedented detail the surface of the moon. It was over 100 years later when humans first stepped foot on the moon, and they were able to share with the world what the surface of our closest celestial body looked like. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe to the Science Museum channel.